Brad Garlinghouse just dropped us a major hint on what comes next with the SEC. Now, I know a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, the case is over. What could possibly come next? Well, guys, there's still a $125 million fine, as well as an injunction that prevents Ripple from selling XRP to institutions. In this video, I want to go over a brand new clip of Brad Garlinghouse where he drops a very interesting hint about what comes next. Guys, make sure to stick around for this whole thing. You are not going to want to miss it. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you have any good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange upload down in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the content. So I want to start this video out and actually talk about something that hasn't gotten a lot of attention recently, and that's Ripple's new stablecoin business. Now, guys, since this case has now officially ended, or the SEC's case against Ripple has officially ended, I think we're going to see a lot more Brad Garlinghouse, David Schwartz, and a lot more information on Ripple the company. For a long time, over the past 4 years, Ripple has been forced to be very quiet. And that's because essentially anything they said the SEC would use against them in court. Actually, the SEC throughout the entire Ripple SEC case was trying to add new charges against Ripple, even though these things were new products not even involved in the original case, but the SEC was just trying to throw anything they possibly could at the company. And because of that, obviously Ripple and the rest of the team had to be very careful about anything they said in fear that the SEC would try to use it against them. Now, I actually want to share with you a brand new clip of Brad Garlinghouse actually talking about Ripple's stablecoin business, because for the first time ever, we're actually hearing what they think about the stablecoin business. For the longest time, we really couldn't hear what Ripple thought about these things because the SEC was such a weight on their shoulders. But we actually have a brand new clip of Brad Garlinghouse actually talking about their new stablecoin business, and I want you guys to listen carefully to what he says here, because it's actually extremely exciting. Now, I have been very impressed by the growth of RLUSD, but I want to share with you what Brad Garlinghouse thinks about it because I think it's just as exciting. Listen up to this.
If you think about the next forefront of stablecoins now that the U.S. is getting toward clarity, what's possible?
Well, again, I think we're underestimating how big that might get. You know, today that market's about $230 billion. So I think some smart people think that may go up 10x in the next 5 years. I think that's probably right. I mean, the two leading players in Tether as well as USDC are both, I think, poised to do well in that market. Ripple launched our own stablecoin at the end of last year. That's already ahead of our own internal forecasts in terms of where we are at this point in the year. Still, we're small, but the goal is by the end of the year for RLUSD, Ripple's stablecoin, to be one of the top 5 in the market by the end of the year. And I think the whole market's going to grow dramatically over this year.
So what does it take you to get there? Who are you pairing up with? Are you creating some financial partnerships in order to make RLUSD more of a household name?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even today we had more listings go live for RLUSD on some global crypto exchanges. You know, anytime you do something new, it takes a minute for that kind of, if the pun of the ripple effect of seeing how that plays out. And so we're seeing that happen in real time. So I'm really pleased. And again, as I said, we're ahead of our Q1 forecasts of where we expect it to be. So we feel really good about that progress.
First of all, I want to quickly say, thank the Lord Brad Garlinghouse is able to do these interviews again. For the longest time, essentially because of the Ripple SEC case, Brad Garlinghouse wasn't really doing a lot of interviews. And the reason for that is because for those of you who remember, the SEC, when they brought the case, had to lock in their charges against Ripple. Yet despite that, they kept on bringing up random new products Ripple launched throughout the entire case, even though they were completely irrelevant to the actual underlying issues presented when they filed the case. Essentially what the SEC was doing was throwing anything at the wall they could to try to see if it would stick. But because of that, obviously Ripple had to be conservative and they had to be very careful about anything they talked about. So there was a period of time where we really weren't getting a lot from people like Brad Garlinghouse, and obviously that was extremely disappointing for me because listening to people like Brad Garlinghouse and David Schwartz actually talk about the industry is, to me, one of the most fascinating ways to gather information about how we're progressing. So it's so nice to hear Brad Garlinghouse able to just talk transparently about this stuff again. You can tell even in this interview, he has such a weight lifted off his shoulder, and it is just so nice to be able to see that. Now, one of the things that Brad Garlinghouse mentions here that I think is super important is the actual growth of RLUSD. He says very clearly here that RLUSD is growing faster than what Ripple thought in their internal metric. So obviously that is a huge, huge win and extremely bullish for RLUSD moving forward. He says that RLUSD has blown through their own internal metrics, and right now RLUSD is pushing up to a market cap of close to $200 million. Obviously extremely significant. One of the things that I think he actually backs off a little bit in this interview that, to me, there's a reason for it because he doesn't want to spur up a lot of the tribalism problems we've been seeing. But one of the things he definitely backs off is the success of Tether moving forward. He kind of says, oh, I think Tether will continue to succeed. But I think one of the things that we all know is that Ripple has a serious opportunity to essentially displace Tether. And the reason for that is because Tether is essentially refusing to be compliant in the jurisdictions that matter. What we're seeing right now is the United States is in the process of crafting stablecoin legislation. And this stablecoin legislation is no joke. I mean, these are strict stablecoin laws. Laws that only a company like Ripple and maybe Circle are going to comply with. Now, the question is how do we know Tether won't just comply with the new laws being proposed in the United States? Well, what we're seeing right now is the laws being proposed in the United States are actually stricter than the laws proposed in the EU under MiCA. And Tether chose not to comply with MiCA. They just said, okay, we'll see you later. We're out of this market. So if Tether leaves the United States market, it is going to create a void that someone needs to fill. And in my opinion, Ripple is in the perfect place to actually fill this void. And I want to talk about why that's the case. Obviously, there are the obvious things like Ripple being very transparent, them having things like decentralized ID on the XRP ledger, things like them having clawbacks on the XRP ledger. So if a financial institution says, hey, we actually sent this money to the wrong place, it's not, oh, sorry, that money's gone forever, right? That's never going to fly. It's like, okay, we can just claw it back. These common sense things that financial institutions are going to need. But there's something else very important here that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. And that very important thing is actually Ripple custody. Ripple custody is kind of going under the radar right now, but the fascinating thing is Ripple custody is a way for Ripple, or has been a way for Ripple, to get themselves into the infrastructure of all the major banks. When Ripple first bought Medico and then eventually rebranded it to Ripple, almost no one knew who Medico was. But Medico was working with all the major financial institutions who were leading in early to cryptocurrency, providing them custody. What Ripple has done is purchase them. And now Ripple sits at the infrastructure layer for these financial institutions who hold all the assets. Guys, where do you think Ripple is going to lead those financial institutions? Well, it's obvious. It's going to be RLUSD. And all of this liquidity flowing into RLUSD will ultimately need to be made liquid on the XRP ledger. How's that going to happen? It's going to be liquid against XRP. So these are all massive things for XRP moving forward. And what we're seeing is Ripple has already created the infrastructure to allow these financial institutions to step into the industry. Something that I don't think enough people understand is that all these big banking institutions and financial institutions who want to get involved in crypto are not going to do it themselves. I will tell you that right now. I know this for a fact. They're not going to do it themselves. They want to work with someone to build the solutions for them. Who has been working with these financial institutions since day one? It's Ripple. And for the longest time, that was seen as a FUD point. People are like, oh, well, they're not actually using XRP, therefore Ripple and XRP are a scam. But while everyone else was screaming that from the rooftop, Ripple was saying, okay, you keep saying that, but guess what we're doing? We are learning what these financial institutions actually need. While the rest of the cryptocurrency industry was saying, oh, well, they'll just go figure it out. They'll go figure it out. Here's our decentralized tech. They'll go build something on it. That's not what Ripple was saying. Ripple said, okay, well, what are you guys ready to do now? How can we help you now? And how can we learn about your business? Because if Ripple was actually able to get themselves in the door, create critical infrastructure for these financial institutions and understand their business, then they can build cryptocurrency related products that make sense for these financial institutions. This is why Ripple is in a class of their own. Because while everyone else has kind of been focusing on, hey, what does retail want? What is going to be used right this second? What is going to cause adoption right in this moment? And that's been speculation and meme coins. Ripple has taken a different approach. They said, let's build partnerships, let's build trust, and let's start to understand what needs to be built for these financial institutions to actually get involved. Ripple has custody, they have the stablecoin, and they have the decentralized neutral asset XRP. This is a product offering that is becoming all-encompassing, the Amazon of crypto, where they can go to these financial institutions and say, hey, you don't need to do anything else. Work with us. We've got you covered. Guys, this is turning into a home run and really starting to look like what I ultimately envisioned cryptocurrency to be one day. And that is Ripple delivering these products to financial institutions so they don't need to know a single thing about cryptocurrency, but could be all in on the XRP ledger. Now, I want to pivot and talk about something else extremely interesting, which is what is left in the Ripple SEC case. Because I know we talked about earlier how the SEC has dropped their charges, but there actually still are two kind of interesting things. Now, the less interesting thing is the $125 million fine. Is Ripple going to be able to get that waived? Well, we're actually about to watch a video of Brad Garlinghouse talking about that. But the thing that's really making headlines right now is this injunction. And what the injunction was a ruling by Judge Torres saying that Ripple can't sell XRP to institutions. But here's the key. The way they did in the past. A lot of people are really misunderstanding this. They think Ripple is barred from ever selling to financial institutions again. But that's not the case. Essentially what Judge Torres said is, hey, you can't take that road you took to the store anymore. And Ripple sat back and said, okay, we won't take that road anymore to the store. Instead, we're going to go take this other road to the store. And therefore, we're going to follow your rules, right? We're not going to take that road anymore, but we're still going to go to the store. A lot of people are misunderstanding this injunction. They are thinking that the judge essentially told Ripple they can't go to the store. But no, Ripple was told they can't take that specific road to the store. So what Ripple is doing now, what I believe, is they're just going to say, okay, we're going to take this different road to the store. Judge Torres said that Ripple can't sell XRP to institutions like they were in the past. But that's a very specific requirement, right? They could just sell XRP differently and be completely compliant. So I think a lot of people are missing that piece of the injunction. But I want to share with you a clip of Brad Garlinghouse actually talking about this, because I think what you're about to learn is all of these small little issues and nuances are going to be tied up very soon. Listen up to this clip and then we'll break it down.
Well, I mean, at this point, all we're fighting for is, do we want to fight to get the $125 million back?
No injunction.
And look, I'll be honest, would I have walked away from that before they appealed, before President Trump put Paul Atkins and Scott Bessent and David Sachs as critical, key, very smart leaders in this industry to bring this industry back on shore? I would have walked away. Now you look at that, you're like, this case in this SEC never would have been brought. And so where we find ourselves is, great, there's a clear illegal victory to say XRP is not a security. That was good for the industry. But there's pieces of it that we think could be kind of cleaned up. And the question is, do we want to fight that fight, or can we come to an agreement with the SEC to drop everything?
So guys, once again, so happy to hear Brad Garlinghouse talking again, because this is absolutely incredible. And what you heard in the last 4 seconds is the most important part. We are trying to work with the SEC to drop the entire thing. Guys, I believe Ripple will be able to work with the SEC to drop this entire case and make it so Ripple essentially gets to pick their win. Now, a lot of people are asking, when is that going to happen? Well, it looks like Paul Atkins will be confirmed to the SEC around March 27th. And that is when I believe these discussions are really going to kick into high gear. I'm not sure enough people really appreciate what's happening here. Ripple is in the driver's seat, as Stuart Alderati said. They have the potential to work with an SEC that wants to work with them to craft what is going to be the future of their business. They get to work with the regulator to create compliance and create structured rules they can follow for institutional adoption. Brad Garlinghouse lays it out right there. They want to work with the SEC to craft a settlement to make it so that they can move forward with full clarity for their business. Guys, this is the holy grail that we have been waiting for. Yes, the SEC's attack against Ripple is over, But there's one final thing to drop here that I believe could be the ultimate bullish scenario for Ripple and XRP moving forward. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. And for now, Mickle out.